You don't have a name for him. You don't call him Papa, Dad.
No, the last time I picked up the phone on him and said, hello, Dad, and he said, what happened? You need money or what?
And you've been a father for most of your adult life.
Yes. So obviously somebody who doesn't watch condom ads.
Most of his life.
Zishan Kadri came to me
With that story.
So it's there in the book on Gangs of Wasseypur. We worked on it for a few months. Letters addressed to Sanjeev Kapoor for Sham Savera, and most of them had Rakhis. Sanjeev became the nation's brother. And the only difference I think between me and Anurag, big difference is that I work for finite hours. Anurag works longer hours like he likes.
There were no hours.
How can Anurag Kashyap be your Papa? No. I mean, he has a cult following, right? He has the thing
does.
going.
He has a following.
Yeah. He's been like a mentor to a lot of indies.
Ram Gopal Verma will never happen again. He empowered us like no one else did. That film's failure broke me.
I think it's his best.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
It was a gangster drama. Dara Singh playing Don Corleone. Matlab Punjabi Don Corleone.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank Shekhar.
Hello and welcome to the Bombay Film Story. This is a podcast where we look at Bombay and films through the lens of someone who belongs to both. My name is Mayank Shekhar. With me are actually two people, and father and son, Hansal Mehta, Jai Mehta. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mayank.
Thank you for having us.
So, Mayank Shekhar was a name in the bylines. And good to see you in front of the camera and doing pretty well.
And getting coffee instead of a drink.
Yes, and I'm meeting. So the first time I met you, I remember we were at the Aligarh party. We were celebrating Aligarh. And so,
I think Juhu.
Juhu.
Yeah.
So we met and I said, this is Mayank Shekhar. लिखता तो बड़ा serious है यार.
देखने में तो लगता है. Jay, I'm going to start with you, of course. Firstly, what do you call him? Papa?
Hansal sir.
Hansal sir, even at home.
No, home there's no
At
name.
home actually, I just start talking.
You don't have a name for him. You don't call him Papa, Dad.
No, the last time I picked up the phone on him and said, hello, Dad, and he said, what happened? You need money or what?
Actually, what happened is, I think Jay was born when I was 23. And मैं थोड़ा सा 23 पे moment I saw this child, I said कि यार I need to run away. Literally. I said कि क्या हो गया? All my friends are partying and they are having a great time. They're dating people and I have a child. I'm carrying diapers with me. Bag. I used to carry this bag with me with bottle and.
As you should.
As a father should.
Yeah.
Cereal that you mix in hot water. I used to carry for him. So वो मैं थोड़ा सा भाग गया था and then for years, we had a slightly tumultuous life. Me more than anyone else, I had the tumultuous life and Jay was one of the persons who bore the brunt of that life. So we met actually when we started working together, literally.
Really?
Before working, I mean, he was 15 or 16 when he said, I am not enjoying studying and I want to be in your business.
Were you an absentee dad in that sense?
Well, I was absent and present, both, matlab.
Let him answer that
I don't
question.
think he was absent.
Okay.
He was always there. I mean, ultimately, I mean, no, he was there. I just felt like I just don't think he was ready to be a father. I felt like he wasn't really running away. I just thought he was in the wrong
somebody
marriage.
who was not ready to be a father. I have 4 children.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you've been a father for most of your adult life.
Yeah, so incredible. I mean, obviously somebody who doesn't watch condom ads.
Most of his life.
Or doesn't believe the product works.
Most of his adult life, most of his life. 22. They were pregnant with me at 22.
Yeah.
Not most of his adult life also, most of his life.
Yeah, we were talking about ghetto right before this. I remember one of the scribbles in ghetto is condoms don't work. My father told me so.
It must be me.
It's funny because during Scam, I think Durex had done an ad saying, Ishq hai to risk hai. It had a Durex condom on it.
But you can do that. But they would have taken permission from you, right?
They must have.
They would have.
They did, and they sent me a
It was
packet.
really funny.
They sent me a full Durex hamper. I said, थोड़ा लेट हो गया. थोड़ी देर कर दिया.
What they meant is कि now stop.
No more.
That's what they meant. Now stop.
It's full of irony. Because do you see this? That's what we make.
So when Jay was 16, that's when Kimaya was born. Yeah, you were 16.
Yeah,
no?
I was 16.
You were 16,
Yeah.
15 or 16, between 15 and 16 floating.
I was 15, yeah, 15 when she was born.
I got my first daughter. So Jay was very confused. Ki, Acha, who is this? Is she my sister or is she my...
No, this is a different story. He's
she-
saying he doesn't remember it as well as I do.
Go for it, go for it.
So I remember his friend, my friend also now, Amir Ali, was basically, he came home and he said, Jay, come, we have to go meet your dad. I said, अच्छा. For me it was like, अच्छा रात के 11 बजे ड्राइव पे जाना है, ठीक है, तो मैं चला गया. It was somewhere in Santa Cruz,
Sunflower Hospital.
Sunflower, हाँ. So Sunflower, and then we went there and Amir is like taking me to a hospital. I said, हुआ क्या? And then I go there and I had known Safina. You know, I had known her because I just thought they were friends and maybe they
Your
were
current
dating.
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, who I got married
My
to
mom,
last
yeah.
2 years
So-
back.
Right.
And I thought they were just
After
dating
staying
and
together
stuff.
for very long, you got married though.
We decided to
Officially.
finish.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought they were dating and stuff. So I go inside this hospital and then suddenly I see Safina on the bed and I see a baby. You know, I said, oh, she had a baby. So we have to go congratulate her. But Amir walks into the room and hugs him. And I was like, Arre
That's
teri.
when the penny
I was
dropped.
like, Arre, oh, this
No,
is
that-
his kid.
that was a tough one. Actually, that was a tough one. Like
Because you hadn't told him anything.
I hadn't told my parents.
Oh.
So until few months before, I said now the delivery is going to happen. I might need my parents' help. So I made my sister speak to them. My sister flew down from London to tell them. I said, just help me with this. So she spoke to them and they were very cool. They said, why wouldn't you tell us? I said, no, this is a third child, so you will wonder. And I'm doing nothing with my life. That was a time when I was making Woodstock Villa. So
I mean, you were making a film in your life.
I know, but it was, I myself did not know. I did not know what I was making. I had no idea. I was like, almost as if I was in some sort of haze. It's just, going to a film set, doing what a director is supposed to do, saying action, saying cut, setting up a shot, looking at actors, but not really
Covering pages basically.
covering pages and not really doing anything that is making any difference to anyone.
But you had an amazing comeback, Hansal, and we're of course talking right before the release of Lootere, which is a series on Hotstar, Hotstar Disney, where you are the showrunner, Jay, you are the director. There's another person who's the creator. एक तो इतने सारे hardcore ये titles होते हैं. What does each person do?
I'll tell
How
you-
are you the showrunner and somebody else is the creator? How does it work?
Yeah, so there are India में थोड़ा सा there is this confusion on credits on creators. See, there's a Hollywood way of crediting people like writers who have sort of developed. They have a system which credits the main writer as the creator. यहाँ पर our writers' rooms, our entire development process is more haphazard, and it is driven by different people. So in that sense, I had this argument with somebody else also. I said, we need to make our own nomenclature and decide कि creator exactly यहाँ क्या करता है. We cannot blindly ape the West because it is wrong credit.
And that's not how we're working.
That's not how we work.
Yeah.
Gunjit Chopra and Diggy wrote Kohra. But Sudeep is as much a creator of the show as
Right.
Gunjit or Diggy. So these things, and everyone knows it because Gunjit is there every day. So he's the creator, showrunner, all those things. Showrunner is a credit which is never given in the West.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
It's never credited. There's a creator, then there's executive producer. Unfortunately, executive producer here is the guy who does production. Who does actual production is credited with executive producer, so there's confusion. So I've been constantly for a show like Lootere, for example, I said, make me executive producer because a title called father does not exist. कि नया टाइटल आ जाता, फादर ऑफ द डायरेक्टर. बट वो देयर इज मतलब देयर इज अ ग्रे एरिया विद रिगार्ड्स टू दिस, एंड यू नो शैलेश डिजर्व्स you know, beyond creator, there is no other credit that Shailesh can get for actually being with the show, driving the show for 5 years.
Right.
You know, he's been with the show much before either of us came in. You know, 1.5 years later we got in. When Vasan was initially working on the show with Shailesh and Vishal Kapoor, who wrote the show, and Supern. They were writing. They used to work from our office. I used to meet Supern, I used to meet Vasan. And I knew they were working on this, and then one fine day, Shailesh.
Why from your office? Like, do you have like a co-working space?
Shailesh and me used to, we did something very groundbreaking in 2016. It was called Simran. You know, so
With Kangana Ranaut.
with Kangna.
Yeah.
So we made Simran, Shailesh and me together. We had worked on Omerta also. Where he produced those films for me. So I used to work from Shailesh's office. And this was happening there, you know. So I still use Shailesh's office. It's my free of rent working space.
Nice.
So Shailesh has been working on it. I mean, he got us, and he has persevered through the process, you know. And I am not one for selling the struggle of making something. I think what matters is that
What you finally see.
what people are seeing, what people are liking, what people are, you know, enjoying. That is what matters, and I think that credit goes to Jay and Shailesh, and
You're the father.
and me for tolerating both of them, and somehow getting them to tolerate each other.
Yeah, because we wouldn't fight directly, no. We'd call him.
But you worked with him before as well, right? Over time.
12 years, no?
13 years.
13 years you've been working with him. That's amazing. Which are the credits that you worked
Shahid.
with? Shahid. You started with Shahid.
From Shahid till Omerta.
And before Shahid, were you working with Anurag Kashyap?
I was, yes. I was on Gangs of Wasseypur and That Girl in Yellow Boots.
Ah, so you chose to start with Anurag Kashyap, learn all the Anurag Kashyap things, and then apply it with your father.
So he came, you know, when he approached me saying, I want to get into this. So I had a friend who used to work in Dharma. So I called him. I said, I was very troubled. I said, look, my son wants to do the same thing I'm doing, not making money. कि हीरो भी नहीं बनना है उसको. ऐसे धर्मा में उसको काम दे दे शायद.
Did you encourage him though?
Yeah.
I mean, you yourself learned engineering.
No, he did.
So my parents, this is one thing my parents, this is a gift our parents gave us, never to come in the way of anybody's dreams.
Right.
You know, my parents never came in the way of my dreams, nor did I. I had to help him. I was in the business, and you know, this is the first time my son had actually reached out. So I had to do something about that. So I spoke to Anurag, and I spoke to Dharma. Dharma also immediately is a VR family. He was going to intern on VR family, and we were supposed to fly to Australia. He was supposed to be paid for the film. But then he went and met Anurag, who called me in his usual style and said, "Sir, अच्छी फिल्म में दिखता है, अच्छा है, भेज दो आप मेरे पास." And I asked Jay, I said, choose now, कहाँ जाना है?
Right.
So he did not hesitate for a second and said,
You went to Jharkhand instead.
He went to Wasseypur.
Dhanbad, yeah, Jharkhand.
Yeah.
Dhanbad. He went to Dhanbad with Zishan Kazri and the other two writers, Sachin and Akhilesh.
Yeah.
And
We were there for 2.5 months doing the research on the film.
Right.
Yeah.
so that was
I
his
got in and he just
baptism
said,
by
"Ki,
fire.
काम करो, तुम लोग चले जाओ."
That's pretty cool. That's a great first film to work on. I mean, it turned out to be like a great first film, or at least the early film of so many people
So
involved
many.
with that particular.
Yeah. So many of
that
us.
movie.
Vicky
And Mukesh-
Kaushal, all of us.
Mukesh Chabra. I mean,
Mukesh
in a
Chabra.
way, Mukesh Chabra was part of casting teams, but this was his big breakout film.
Yeah.
That cast, Jaideep Alawat, Gaurav Sharma, Pankaj
Tripathi.
Tripathi,
Nawaz's first
Nawaz,
lead in
yeah,
a real
it
sense.
was like even Manoj Bajpayee's
Manoj
revival.
Bajpayee kind of
Revival,
Yeah.
that's
It's
true.
a big revival for
Yeah.
Manoj.
Yeah.
Richa Chadha, so
And you know, there's a,
Huma Qureshi.
Huma-
and you know,
Qureshi,
Gangs of
so
Wasseypur was a, I mean, it's just, this guy Zishan Kadri came to me
With that story.
with that story. So it's there in the book on Gangs of Wasseypur. He came to me.
Was there a book on Gangs of Wasseypur?
Yeah, there's a
Read
book.
that.
There's a book that was so in which he first came to me. We worked on it for a few months.
Okay.
And I spoke to Manoj. Manoj was also doing nothing at that time, so I called Manoj. We had just started talking. We had broken up for 6, 7, 8 years. So I spoke to Manoj. I said कि तू करेगा क्या? तो he said हाँ यार अच्छा लगता है करते. he said मैं थोड़ा पैसा भी लगा देता हूँ. You know, because I said मैं पता नहीं कैसे बनाऊंगा, nobody trusts me, and you and me together तो मतलब फिल्म बनेगी नहीं. So he said मैं थोड़े लगा दो, थोड़े तू raise कर. So we started writing कि चलो देखते हैं how to raise money. In the meanwhile, Zishan went and met Anurag, and Anurag called me कि सर आप बना रहे हो तो मैं नहीं बनाता हूँ. I said यार बना रहा हूँ मतलब दिमाग में बना रहा हूँ, it's not going to.
There's nothing on. I mean, nothing on.
I don't have a producer.
Right.
I don't have a producer. मतलब it's an impractical dream. So I said एक ही request है यार, please if you can मनोज को ले ले. You know, because this is a film I promised Manoj.
And he's willing to put his money on it.
I didn't tell him that.
Yeah.
मतलब क्यों मनोज के खर्चे मैं मनोज ने said अबे तूने क्या कहाँ कह दिया, ये बहुत कंजूस है मनोज. मनोज कंजूस बहुत है वैसे. वो कहेगा लगाऊंगा फिर लगाएगा नहीं. So वो इतना कमिटमेंट नहीं किया मैंने. I said तू कर ले यार. And he had UTV. UTV was at that time producing the film. So I said
Because
you
he just finished the FD and it
Right,
did really well.
right.
Yeah, so the meeting happened along with somebody from UTV, and it was, I think it was Vikas only. So I said, yeah, you make it. There's a new.
You don't have the bandwidth right now.
No, I can't make it.
And it was exactly the same script in terms of the.
You know, so he made a origin story, which became, Sardar Khan's story. So the Sardar Khan was in the first scene.
Correct.
He was only in one scene, and the rest of the film was Faisal's film. That was the film. So Anurag made part 1 as Sardar Khan, and that was Manoj Bajpayee. Part 2 was the story that Zishan got.
So Manoj was going to be Faisal then, if he's going to be.
Yeah, he was going to be Faisal. But it would have been a completely different film. It was more a City of God kind of film at that time. Anurag just went completely audacious. That was like his most audacious piece of work.
Easily.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank Shekhar.
Coming back to both of you, and actually coming back to the father and son relationship. I mean, you were born, if I'm not mistaken, in the same house that he was, and you were born in the same house as your father.
Yeah.
Right. And
How did you know that?
I mean, I do my homework before I meet.
Khar.
So this is in Khar. Tell me where exactly, and what is this house where 3 generations have lived?
Actually, 4 generations.
4 generations.
My grandfather moved there in that house in 1921. In that house, it was called
Mukhi Niwas.
Well, Mukhi was much later. It became Mukhi much later. It was called Godambe Villa.
Godambe Villa.
And
Godambe Villa.
Godambe Villa.
Okay, it's still there or not?
No, so it's now replaced by Gabana.
By a builder and a Kukreja tower.
Gabana Khar.
The Gabana house.
Okay.
You know, Gabana was the tailor, Akbar. Who used to cook.
So that building, that building.
Yeah.
plot.
The HDFC Bank.
China Garden used to be.
Same.
Yeah,
China
same.
Garden.
That was your house?
Yes, that was.
Oh, what a lovely location.
The only thing remaining there is the mango tree.
Yeah.
It's
In
still
the
there.
backyard. It's still there. It's like very badly cut up. But that mango tree still. So I sometimes go there and I walk and look at the mango tree. I was born there. My father, I mean, you know, it was an eventful house. That house. So at that time it was a pagdi system. So we were all on pagdi. So landlord was a guy called Mr. Godambe.
Okay.
And
so it wasn't your house.
we were tenants.
Okay.
But we were those old pagdi tenants. So since 1921 we were tenants.
Oh, so you mean,
The
are you one of
rent act.
those rent
Rent
act
act.
ones?
The
So you're
rent
paying some 10 rupees a month?
Yeah.
100, yeah, maybe.
No, 10.
100 rupees a month is 10 rupees a month.
Massive, yeah. Huge bungalow.
10 rupees and it went up to some 30 rupees finally. When we
it was
left,
like massive.
30, 40 rupees, 50 rupiya kuch tha
Wow.
rent. It was a crazy. I mean, the rent act was very warped.
Yeah.
But we went through multiple landlords. So we were also, because it was in Pagdi. So my grandfather had given some advance to Godambe, and that's how we became. So it was, you know, that long lease, 99-year lease type ka jo hota hai. It's an equivalent. Pagdi is that.
Right.
You get a promissory note.
So it's as good as you owning the house.
Yeah, so it was on Pagdi.
Right.
So you are a tenant without owning the land. You own the air that you live in.
Right.
That much, jo trapped hai.
Correct.
So my grandfather was allowed to take a paying guest. So we had a paying guest, and for the longest time, guess who he was? Vijay Tendulkar. So Tendulkar was my grandfather's paying guest.
And your neighbor in that sense.
A neighbor. He was in the house. He was in the house outside our this. You know, and it was a kacha wall. It was an asbestos wall which separated his.
What kind of a house did Tendulkar live in? Was it a big house? Or?
It was very small. It was one room. It was one room kitchen. The
So
bathroom.
a whole lifetime of the finest literature.
No, so he wrote some of his early. His daughters were born there. Priya Tendulkar,
Right.
Sushma Tendulkar were born in that house.
Okay.
Not the son. So
But Hansal, he told me he didn't make enough money to be able to live.
at
in
that
a
time,
bigger
he was
home.
just beginning. He was a
Okay,
writer.
so it's an early phase of his
But he
life.
wrote of all his big plays, Gidde, Shantata Court Chalu Hai, they were written there. They were written out of major angst against Mr. Godambe.
Really?
So my father,
Binder also written there?
it was based, so most of his protagonists were usually very dark, very grey. They were all based on Mr. Godambe.
Who was also your landlord?
He was our landlord,
Your
and
family
he
landlord.
used to hate Tendulkar. He used to keep telling my grandfather, why do you have him? Usko क्यों रखते हो? He's this artist है. So the artists were looked upon, theatre artists.
He wasn't proud of the fact that, or maybe Tendulkar wasn't so big at the time.
And also Tendulkar's plays were always, flirting with censorship.
Right.
Even then,
Yeah.
they were banned.
Yeah.
There was strong language. The characters, he spoke about sex openly.
Right.
So it was very.
So you knew him pretty well then.
Well, I met Mr. Tendulkar much later. When I was born, that house, Mr. Tendulkar had moved on.
Okay.
He had
Into a better home.
into a better home in Ville Parle.
Fine.
So I met him. Paresh Rawal took me to meet him, and I told him that I am, Subodh Mehta's grandson. He says, "You're Deepak's son." My God, he said, "Arey, and where is that Godambe?" I said,
Rehne do, sir.
"He's gone. R.I.P."
What was Khar like at that time?
It was beautiful. It was called air conditioner. It was the air conditioned street. So,
Green, and it was only bungalows.
so if you look at that road, even now, it's called the CD Marg, Chitrakar Dhurandhar Marg. Dhurandhar again. Dhurandhar was a great painter. So that first road car was named after Chitrakar Dhurandhar. And
basically bungalows on that
only bungalows. So right opposite me, where there is the Roy Kapoor Films office. So that was a Parsi family. They are the last ones to actually sell
in Khar.
in Khar. The last ones to sell their bungalow. Behind our house was Lakhanpal bungalow, which is the Novino batteries. They used to make batteries. They're a massive bungalow.
And then the Motwanis.
And then the Gyanghar, which was the Motwanis.
The Motwani.
So Vikram Motwani.
Motwanis of the Vikram Motwani.
Yeah.
Now Vikram
His
Motwani
family.
fame.
His
Right.
father Sunil lived there. So entire family. So Vikram's house. So they were the royal. They were Khar royalty.
Ah.
Yeah,
They were
they
Khar
are
royalty. So
huge.
they had their house stretched from 15th
15th
road,
to
14th A,
14th.
14th B.
Yeah, it was
3
quite-
roads. And as a
when
child, I
all
used to
the-
go there.
Did you see him as a child?
Vikram, no.
No? He
No, I
wasn't
don't-
living there?
He would be, but if you look at all his uncles now, the uncles all remind you of Vikram only. Vikram looks like one of his uncles. I tell him also.
were right opposite Kazim Khan.
You're crabby, tall Sindhi.
They were right in front of
Crabby, tall, poker-faced,
fun actually.
humor, Sindhi.
With hopefully more talent than them, I'm presuming. Because he
They
did-
were also. I mean, they had
Sure, yeah.
a huge. They were the Chicago radio family.
Right, right.
And my parents used to take me there. So his uncles and all, they'd all grown up with my father. So we used to go there. That was Sundays would be like you go there for bhajans. So Sudha Malhotra, who is his aunt, Girdhar Motwani's wife, used to sing there. She, a lot of other, Vinod Khosla, who sang in marches. Him, Ghanshyam Aswani, they were struggling ghazal singers. So they would all come, they would do bhajans there every Sunday.
Amazing.
So I have like very vivid memories. And there was Khar Gymkhana, which was, when I grew up, it was just one shed. It was called Dajoba Memorial Hall. And it had a badminton court and it had table tennis tables.
the cricket ground, the ground at the
And the big ground.
The ground,
The cricket ground was big.
Right.
So, I played for Khar Gym then.
Where did you hang out? I mean, now there is no difference between Khar and Bandra. It's literally the same neighborhood, right? I don't know where
there is a
Bandra
difference.
ends and Khar starts. I don't know. Like, so if you look at it from the Union Park side, so there is, for instance, Olive, but if you cross the road, it becomes Khar. And that side becomes
the road
That's
numbers-
because it's the end of.
Also,
Yeah,
the road
because
numbers
the end
change.
of
So if you go straight on the 14th road, it suddenly becomes 29th road.
29, yeah, because they're
Right.
they're
Right.
numbered like
Yeah.
that.
So that numbering, is like very confusing, except for somebody who lived there all
But
his
that's
life.
also
Yeah.
because I think earlier that part of Link Road was also not like that. No, it was
Linking
SC Road. No,
No, Linking Road. It was always
Linking Road was there only.
Always there.
Because otherwise 13th Road comes like on that side of the Link Road.
Yeah. So
Which is
12th
very
road.
funny.
Yeah.
So the 13th, 12th, 11th and all those roads, they were towards Khar station. And Khar East was like basically a slum colony. So there was Khar station and this side of Khar station. So like Khar station was our hangout. There was Banarsi Sweet Mart.
Okay.
So that was like, when I would come back from college, I studied in Ruia College. I would come back from college and I would go to Banarsi to have a samosa.
Ruia College, you mean 11th and 12th?
Yeah.
That would be, because you moved to Pune.
After 12th.
After, right.
So yeah.
Were there bars and stuff in Khar, Bandra?
Well, Janta was there, Yacht was there.
Yacht was there.
So that
What is
Bandra.
in Andrews?
Andrews Yacht.
Which is still there.
These are old, these are institutions.
Right.
Right. These are all Khar institutions.
Khar Khana?
And Khar Khana had a bar.
Also cheap.
Khar Khana, Banda Gym.
Even now, yeah.
And Banda Gym. So Banda Gym was there, which is the East Indian Gymkhana actually. So it give membership is open mainly to East Indians. And there was Otters Club. Otters Club was the elite, the Bandra rich.
On Perry.
But no, not to me, like not a proper nightlife scene the way Bandra.
So there was the closest was
Sea-Rock,
closest was near.
Yeah, but it had a nightclub.
No, Sea-Rock had a nightclub called Playboy. Playmate Club.
I mean, again, I don't know this. It must have shut down before I was even born. But I just
even
know of these. I know of these through.
I mean, I
my
know
family.
Sea-Rock from literally every single person I meet from Bollywood, and they tell me that that's where they all hung out. They were all members there. They were all chilled there. Everybody was just there.
I think that shut down before I was born.
It was adjacent to Sea-Rock. Playmate Club. That's where all the models and actors of that time would hang out. I have very little memory. I was very small when all that happened. Like I remember going to the Sea-Rock coffee shop. It was a lovely coffee shop. Sea-Rock was a beautiful spot, right on the sea.
Yeah, well, nothing exists there right now.
Nothing exists there right now. So I think when I went to Australia, I came back. Sea-Rock had already been destroyed. It had that blast.
Right, 93.
It was just 93, and I was not in India at that time.
I'm also asking you this, Hansal. I think the last we met was at the Fiki Frames conference last year, and there was a directors roundtable. There was Sriram Raghavan, there was you, Sudhir Mishra, there was Abhishek Chaubey, and one thing that you mentioned there that really struck with me is, when you're mentioning other directors, and I think it was a larger conversation about the early days, they said, you didn't have to struggle so much because you had a home to go to.
Yeah.
And that the first few years in Bombay trying to make it in films is brutal. A lot of people cannot live in this city. And it's becoming harder and harder day by day. Would you agree? Like, did Jay luck out in that sense because he has a home to go to, as there's a lot of people who probably move to Bombay and figure out where to live?
I mean, when I started working, our entire family had moved out of Bombay.
Okay.
So yeah, I was on rent. I was on rent. Yeah, he'd moved to Lonavala.
Right.
My
So you were doing the
Pune.
struggler life? In a real
Really,
sense?
I mean, they were paying the rent. Because I wasn't making that kind of money, or otherwise I would crash at Anurag sir's house.
Okay.
Yeah, or in his office.
That's a system.
So I had you were saying that
Dindoshi.
right?
Yeah, it was like a one.
So we had hired a
kitchen.
one-room kitchen house. So life actually restarted during Shahid.
From there,
It was a restart. Like everything, we had shut everything down in Bombay. My entire establishment, and my parents who lived all the life decided to go to Pune.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we in 97.
And you sold off you just moved out of their home.
So 97 we moved out of Khar. We went to Lonavala.
So
Lonavala.
Why did you move out of their home?
Well, the
landlord issue.
Builder.
Also
the
the
builders came in.
was-
Builders came. The house was crumbling.
It was crumbling.
We
Yeah.
had 6 bedrooms in the house. Very big house. It was crumbling. So my father was very unwell when that happened, and he was not willing to move out. He was negotiating. He was fighting. He was very unwell. So I actually convinced him. I said, your health is not good, and this house is not doing us any good. We are not able to even paint the house. We are in such a bad shape. So we took a realistic decision, sold the house, moved to Lonavala. But Lonavala always felt...
Which year is this?
97.
Okay.
Lonavala always felt like a transit home for us. It was, we transited through Lonavala. They moved to Pune somewhere in 2007, 10 years later. I moved out in 2006. So I lived with my parents until 2006. In
Lonavala.
In Lonavala, Khar, and then Lonavala. I was always with my parents. So I moved out pretty late. And then that is an advantage to be without having to pay rent. It's after I left my parents' home, rent hit me. The struggler's life began then.
Right. Like, have you met people in the city, Hansal, over time, and you've known so many of them trying to start out in films, whether as technicians or as directors or perhaps even actors? They may have been very talented, but they just simply couldn't hold on to the idea because it is so brutal initially that they probably left and you felt like, yeah, you should have
Thoda ruk jate.
And
that's the thing, I've always wondered, I revived my career when I was living in Lonavala. That too not Lonavala, it was on the outskirts in a town called Malavri. I revived my career there. It did not happen in Bombay. Because the pressure of living in Bombay was so much that I had to do this job with White Feather Films. To manage...
To pay the rent.
To pay the rent, and by then I had 4 kids.
Right.
I had 3 kids. The 4th was born when I was in Lonavala.
Right.
So...
उधर तो condom shop ही नहीं होगा.
नहीं उधर तो मतलब बिल्कुल नहीं था. उधर मतलब वो थोड़ा
घर पे ही पैदा हुई थी.
पान की दुकान नहीं थी. But there was a wine shop.
That's important.
Lonavala. It's called wine shoppy.
That's why there was a 4th kid. No?
It was called wine shoppy. They all
Shoppy.
They're getting all European about it.
Beer shoppy.
And they started, when I was in college, I did a summer job in a store called Intershoppy. So Intershoppy used to sell FU's jeans. FU's jeans.
That used to be a very popular brand of jeans, I remember.
Yes.
FU's, yes. So then the quiz question used to be, what does FU stand for? And apparently it says, fuck you Strauss.
Yeah.
Because it's fuck you Levi Strauss.
Really?
Yeah.
It was an American brand. It was an American brand. It was FU's. And they came to India with Intershop, like Intershoppy. That's how it used to be spelled.
Oh, this would do really well.
It was next to China Garden. That was the real China Garden.
The original China Garden, Kemp's Corner.
Yeah, with the piano bar.
Right.
So it was below that, Om Chambers. So...
Intershoppy से आप पहुंच गए beer shoppy.
नहीं, वो shoppy became a fashionable thing. So मतलब people started कि jeans shoppy, clothes shoppy. That became a big fashion. To not call it a thing कि this is a clothes shop. It's a clothes shoppy. anything young and.
But I have to say because you
French
moved
also
from
like Chopin. Like I say, French भी हो सकता है.
हाँ, नहीं European तो है ही.
European है ना.
हाँ, अब French है या Italian है, hard to say.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank Shekhar.
You moved from Khana to Lonavala, and this is like the mid to late 90s. That's also when the movie industry was moving in that direction, right?
Yeah.
Because when you would have started, and in entertainment when you started, so I'm assuming early 90s. 93. The film world was still in South Bombay. Would you agree?
Not South Bombay, but I did not know too many people. But all the people I knew lived in Andheri, but they were all in Yari Road. So like Manoj, so Vishal Bhardwaj, Manoj Bajpai, Ashish Vidyarthi.
These are the guys who were just entering. Yeah.
And they were the only friends I had. Like Vishal was my first friend.
In the movies.
In this business actually, creative business. The only person I knew before that was Sanjeev Kapoor. And the guy who shot Khana Khazana, Sushil Rajpal. There were only 2 people. Rajpal lived in Yamunanagar. FTI camera person who shot my first film also later. Vishal used to live at DN Nagar. So it was,
it was just coming up, right?
DN Nagar he was in a 1-room, very small apartment there.
With his wife?
With Rekha. So Vishal was there. Manoj was at Zora Agadi in Yari Road. And Ashish Vidyarthi was the first one to have sort of made it in that sense. Drokal had happened. He got his national award for Drokal.
Right.
And he was doing a lot of commercial cinema then. He was Raj Kanwar's films and all that.
Right.
So Ashish was at Yari Road near the Mandir Mahal. He had a proper good apartment. A decent apartment to live in. He had a lifestyle. So parties used to happen mostly at Ashish's house. And the others were, a lot of people at that time used to live in Mira Road.
Wow.
Real struggling people. So were living in, a lot of people. There was a whole community of artists who lived in Mira Road and who've continued living there.
I mean, so what is happening now?
And Sai Baba Nagar. There was a place called Sai Baba Nagar.
Okay. Is it near
in Goregaon?
In Goregaon.
Goregaon East. So that is, where Oberoi's is. So just when you go up from Oberoi's, there's a whole There was no Oberoi, nothing there. It was Sai Baba Nagar. That was full of Seema Bhargav, Manoj Pava, all of them. Lots of.
That's where they started from, and then they all start moving southwards, right?
Southwards.
I think Lonavala also had a lot of like the television
And all the
industry.
FTI.
was Lonavala.
Right.
The entire FTI gang lived in Sai Baba Nagar. So FTI, most Mohan. So it's now Mohan Gokhale used to live there, the actor.
Yes, of course.
So it's called now Mohan Gokhale Nagar.
Amazing.
I believe Pankaj Kapoor and all
They
were
were
in
in
Lex,
Lex,
no?
they
In
were in
Lex,
Lex,
in Yari Road.
Yari Road.
Right.
Which was also apparently a hub. Like you're from
So there were
FTI,
these
you go to
small,
Lex,
there were these small hubs, Yari Road, Goregaon East,
Oshiwara.
and there was SMGP colony or something it's called. So that was in Goregaon East again, where Aditya Srivastav.
So basically, you are a Bombay person who then moves to Lonavala. Of course, is in the entertainment business by that time, but you are hanging with all of whom you would call migrants in that sense, right? Who moved from other towns, are trying to make it in films, whether it's a Manoj or it's a Vishal. And I'm sure there are other examples of other people. So you were a struggler among people from outside the city while you were an insider to the city.
And
Would that be fair to say?
that's why I'm a late bloomer.
Okay.
Because when they were struggling, I had a house. And we moved from bungalow to
Correct.
Lonavala, so we had an entire...
And you got like money from the builder,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you could
So
afford.
we had a five...
Apartments were like the new.
Right.
Yeah, they
And,
were
we,
like-
and we had
ran
five.
money.
We had
Yeah.
five bedroom
house.
apartment.
Right.
Yeah, it was
It was a big house, 700 square foot hall. So it was a party.
Did you throw parties?
So the housewarming party, Vishal sort of organized it for me. So Suresh Wadkar and Rekha sang at the housewarming party. Then after we got very drunk after that. But we used to do a lot of music and stuff like that. It became very nice. And Machis was happening when we moved there. When we started moving them, Machis had just started. So it was an exciting time. So everybody used to gather to listen to Vishal's music. I remember Choda Hai Hum Wo Galiyan. And he had just done a fresh recording. It was a scratch recording. He came home and we were all seated on the floor and we were listening and humming together, whistling together. I was like, yaar, kya gana banaya Vishal ne?
So, when I look at your friends from that time, your life became quite different from theirs in the sense that, subsequently you see like a Manoj Bajpayee, he does a Satya. Of course, he worked with you as well, and get into your film as well, which I thought was a fantastic film when you made it back in 2000.
Yeah.
Yes. Vishal, of course, had his his own streak, Maqbool onwards in particular. Makri was his first film, but Maqbool really established
Got him into,
in a real sense, right? Or for that matter, Anurag Kashyap. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he worked with you first in terms of
As a writer. His first writing credit was in Jayate.
What was Jayate about? That was your first film. What was the movie about?
Well, Jayate was about...
Which year is this?
About a filmmaker. It was about medical malpractice, and it was actually me trying to prove to myself that I can make a film.
Okay.
It was actually that. So I did all the promotion. I used to be an editor. I used to do Khana Khazana and I used to edit I was a freelance editor.
And editing is something you taught yourself?
I taught myself because Khana Khazana would have been impossible to pull off if I could not edit.
Yourself?
Yeah, because there was no money.
There was no money to pay the editor?
To pay anyone. 32,000 rupees was the
But this is
budget.
Z Network, right? It's a pretty big network at the time, even then. So
it was big, but the food show was not a priority. So we had a budget of 32,000 rupees an episode. जिसमें तभी भी TDS कटता था. So there was no money. You build a set, you have a kitchen, you get ingredients, you have a chef. Sanjeev used to be paid 5,000 rupees an episode.
Wow.
So it was very. So how do we make some money? So I used to edit. Package all the titling, graphics, everything I used to do myself. I used to also deliver.
How did you learn this? Because there was no YouTube at the time, or
I learned it earlier.
Okay.
When I was in Australia, in Fiji. In Fiji Islands, my company had a lot of editing machine, editing equipment and cameras. So I fiddled around with them. I was actually there to set up their computer systems. But I got more involved with all those new gadgets. I was enjoying them.
So there would be an editor there when you were in Australia?
No, the editor had left. So the machine was lying vacant. So I would just go around, shoot stuff, bring the tapes.
Press some buttons, see what
and
happens.
ये in out करके इधर से उधर. So that editing started there. Then my boss said, if you're doing this much, तो कुछ और कर लो. So then I started shooting shadis. The Gujarati weddings there.
Yeah.
Then I started.
This is in Australia?
In Fiji.
In Fiji, okay.
So Gujarati weddings, then I started following all the godmen. A lot of godmen would come there. Ramesh Bhai Oza, Asaram Bapu. All these guys would come there. Not Asaram, Murari Bapu. They would come there. They would give.
You're doing what a Sanskar TV does, and
exactly.
and
I would
stuff
shoot
like
that, then
Yeah.
make videotapes, which we used to sell, VHS tapes. We used to sell in the open market there. Okay, you know, listen to Ramayana by
Right.
Murari Bapu. So it taught me editing. I used to, you know, putting music, doing things, packaging it, you know, putting titles, supers, all that. Then because I was doing that, the local TV channel contacted me to shoot soccer and rugby.
Really?
So then I started going to soccer also, big in soccer and rugby, sevens rugby. So then I started shooting rugby there.
That's hard. I mean, that's a very specialized job to shoot sports, right?
Yeah, but we see, the thing is, it was the country had just had TV. The fact that we had cameras.
Oh, there were no professionals at the time.
No, so the
Right.
fact we had cameras, we had
And that you
equipment,
shot before is good enough.
and that we had shot and that we could edit. So the commentary would be done in I would edit the thing, and the commentator would come and do commentary, and I would sell the VHS tapes. The fact that people could watch their stars
Right.
was a big thing. So I learned editing that way, and that helped me when I came back. Khana Khazana, I could edit. I started editing stuff. I started editing promos for people, for Children's Film Society of India.
I mean, because you mentioned Khana Khazana, Hansal, I must let the viewers know that you are absolutely singularly responsible for making Sanjeev Kapoor like the one, bringing him to the drawing rooms, and then making him like the housewife's greatest pin-up. You know, he's a good-looking man in a very husband material sort of way. Plus, he cooks. The women went berserk, right?
Women went berserk in it very, like, you know, unfortunately for Sanjeev. When initially Sanjeev was rejected by the channel.
Right.
Zee TV did not want him. They said, "Kisko le liya?" And it was a risk I took. It was a punt I took. I had somebody else. I don't know if you remember, an actress called Radha Seth.
Okay. The name is very familiar.
So she was anchoring the show, and I was supposed to have different chefs, but she walked out after the first episode or something. She thought I knew nothing. This is the truth. so then I took Sanjeev. I said, "Tere saath banata hu." I shot with Sanjeev, and I just sent the episodes to Zee. Kamlesh Pandey was heading Zee at the time. He saw it, and
The writer Kamlesh Pandey. Right.
He was heading Zee. He was the content head. So he almost murdered me. He said, "If I had seen you, I would have killed you." He's screaming at me. So who is this?
ये किसको लेके आए हो?
He's a chef. I said, he's a chef. Credibility is. He said, "Bullshit. हमको नहीं चाहिए." So it was a struggle. So Sanjeev Kapoor made one. So the show struggled. You know, मैं पैर पड़ गया कि सर थोड़े एपिसोड्स निकाल दो, मेरे पैसे डूब जाएंगे, इसमें पैसे लग गए, तो मैं डूब जाऊंगा.
वो आपने पैसे अपने लगाए हैं?
मैंने, मतलब मेरी फ्रेंड थी, somebody I met at a bookshop.
Okay.
Called Merlin Joseph. So we became friends in a bookshop. She was looking at kitchen designs, and I said, "You are an interior designer." She said, "No, I'm a costume designer." Both of us bullshitting each other, and we became friends. I said, "So I'm shooting tomorrow, and why don't you give costumes for my show?" So she got her own clothes for the show for Radha Seth. That's why I think first Radha got pissed off. She said, "Ye kiske kapde?" So Merlin's father actually, you know, she realized that I did not have enough money to shoot. So Merlin's father gave us money. He loaned us money. So she became my partner.
Right.
The company was very creatively called Mehta and Merlin Productions.
Nice. Amazing. So you put in money here, you have a guy who nobody wants.
And one recipe. He came into the kitchen, and show was shutting down. 13th episode, Zee TV said कि 13 episode हो गए. It was this 13, 26,
Right.
52.
Yeah.
ये होता था. That was the numbering. So 13th episode बोला बंद हो जाएगा show. I had called another chef for that episode, and that chef didn't turn up. So I called Sanjeev. I said, "Sanjeev, please save me. ये episode कर ले. ये बंद हो रहा है वैसे show." So he came. उसकी बाइक पे आ गया संजीव. बोला, "अच्छा क्या है यार?" तो I said, "पालक है, पनीर है, ये है, टमाटर." This is normal. Ginger, garlic, ये वो. So he made a dish out of palak, paneer and a makhni gravy. You know, so palak, उसके अंदर paneer, made dumplings, fried them, put them in a makhni gravy, put some cream on top, and called it Sham Savera. That dish went out. The episode went out, and Zee TV called me and said कि that time response was, there were no mobile phones.
Right.
So there was a response department. So the response department called me and said कि आके देखो आप response आया है. There was a cement bag full of letters.
Wow.
And they were letters addressed to Sanjeev Kapoor for Sham Savera, and most of them had Rakhis. So Sanjeev became the nation's brother. सारी औरतों का कि संजीव भैया मेरी
वो तो बोल रहे होंगे भैया. I'm pretty sure they were.
कि भाई, but you know that the fact that recipes are a great way of reaching the country's
That's true.
heart.
And he's India's first celebrity chef.
So he told you how to
real
make.
sense.
भाई आपको पनीर मखनी, आपको आपके घर में sitting in some remote corner, you know, outside Bareilly, आप मतलब बैठ के पनीर मखनी जो आपने रेस्टोरेंट में चखी थी वो आप यहाँ घर पे बना रहे हो, एंड देयर इज नो स्ट्रेस कि यहाँ से ये लाओ वो लाओ, कुछ नहीं, घर की जो चीज़ें उससे बना रहे हो आप. You know, so he demystified the process.
Restaurant cooking in India.
Restaurant cooking in India.
Right.
And that was success was that. You know, a lot of people made more sophisticated shows later. So my show was not about sophistication. It was about, you know.
That's true. I mean, I have to say, I think until that point, for Indians in general, some of it is true even now, कि ये घर का खाना है और ये बाहर का खाना है. So बाहर का खाना can never be घर का खाना.
Now it is changed.
Right.
अब मतलब लोग बटर चिकन, you know, they compete कि मेरा बटर चिकन इसके बटर चिकन से बेटर है.
और दाल मखनी.
दाल मखनी या निहारी, you know, you make things at home. It's very easily made. You make pasta at home. You know, you make so many different types of Italian.
I mean, now of course, so much has changed because of YouTube also, right? And everyone's a home chef in that sense.
And it's very democratized. उस वक्त तो मतलब संजीव कपूर actually brought in that. Now everybody, you know, Ranveer Brar acted in my show. He acted in my film, and Brar has a crazy following. You know, but he looks up to Sanjeev Kapoor. He says कि सर pioneer वो है.
Correct.
कि हम सीखे उनसे.
I think he had a great screen presence also. Yeah. It wasn't just about the cooking, right? You like this man. You just like this very man. Yeah, he's a nice man. Quintessential nice man.
So you look at Vikas Khanna. See, all of them idolize Sanjeev for what he did for chefs in general.
Gave them a face.
Gave them a face, and that they became people who went outside the kitchen. Otherwise, the job in the kitchen is pretty boring. A chef's job, you know, it's cooking in bulk.
Right.
You know, they became celebrities.
Right.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank Shekhar.
Now let's get back to you. There is, I get a sense from what all I know about you is that there is a Gujarati pragmatism about you. You know, here's a guy who, you know, you finished your engineering, then you went to Australia to figure out things as a computer programmer, if I'm not mistaken. There you start learning editing. Editing, you start shooting wedding videos. Wedding videos, you start shooting Asaram Bapu. From there, you know, shoot sports. Then you come back, then you pitch a show that becomes India's first, you know, proper chef show in the sense that we now know as a genre. Then from there you move into, you know, films, series, television, before that non-fiction to fiction. I mean, I get a sense that you are a guy who is figuring out कि भैया आगे क्या करना है. Instead of someone thinking कि एक दिन मैं बहुत बड़ा artist बनूंगा.
कभी नहीं.
है ना?
कभी नहीं. मतलब I always say कि यार वो greatness ना आप नहीं, you don't bestow greatness upon yourself. It's a
काम करो बस.
काम करते रहो, कुछ होगा. People, you don't know what people call great. You know, Departed got an Oscar.
Of all the Scorsese films.
I mean, you know, people, taxi driver को नहीं मिला. You never know, you know, everything comes to you actually in retrospect. So, and how does it come in retrospect? When you keep working. Because the world pays you back in retrospect. That is my philosophy. The world, you don't get paid back now. The payback is much later.
Maybe sometimes when you're gone.
When you're gone, it's all, nobody wants that to happen.
Of course.
But that is the truth.
Is that what you learned from your father? What have you learned from him, knowing his life intimately enough to be in that field where, I mean, you chose this field, knowing that your father was in it, right? I mean, that would have been one of the things that sort of drew you.
The good thing that he's learned, that he's still not a father, he's not married.
I learned from his mistakes.
That's a good thing to learn, actually. Like two single people talking to each other.
Yes,
so yes, I'll agree with you.
नहीं single तो नहीं हूँ लेकिन
No, single as in not married.
not
I'm
married.
assuming you're not married.
मतलब
he's making very clear, huh?
His new relationship. What do you mean? Single? What? You said it on.
No offense meant.
No offense meant. Okay.
Well, you can do a shout out if you like. You can do a shout out. कोई बात नहीं.
I do it?
No. I think the one thing I learned from him was to constantly just be at it. I think he's seen a lot, and I've seen him go through it also. You know, I mean, not actively, you know, but I've always known of his career from my grandparents because, you know, they'd keep like, I think they were very skeptical about me getting into the movies. But ultimately, I think what they also did was, like, you know, like he said, was, chalo, let him figure it out. It's his life, let him figure it out. You know, and I think he also told them that, I mean, it's fine, it's okay. There are ways. Right. Not everyone has to, you know, go through what I have, like that kind of thing. I think just constantly be at it, don't give up.
But in a filmmaking sense, I guess Anurag would be more your mentor because that was he was your first boss.
Initially, yes.
Right. What do you learn there? How is he different from Hansal being on a set? Like
they're very different. I mean, they're both very welcoming, and they're all about the team. They're all about, you know, everyone's a bunch of friends working. Everyone's having a good time.
That's important.
It doesn't really feel like
you're not a toxic boss, basically.
No.
And neither is he. He's not a toxic boss either.
No.
Not yelling at people.
Never. On the contrary, we used to actually tell him कि यार कभी तो चिल्ला दो एक बार. आप चिल्लाओगे नहीं तो मतलब लोग काम नहीं करेंगे. सर एक बार आवाज लगा दो. ऐसे हम उनको जाके बोलना पड़ता था. I used to tell him also. I said just once shout.
So I shout off and on, but it's everybody knows, you know, people smile when I'm shouting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
क्या चल रहा है? He's like क्या हो रहा है? And they're like,
sir हो रहा है ना.
Sir acting कर रहे हैं, director कर रहा है.
No, the only difference I think between me and Anurag, big difference is that I work for finite hours. Anurag works longer hours, like he likes.
There were no hours. I mean, we were shooting till it was done.
Right.
So it was also fun because it never really felt like, now, you know, people will of course say that, oh, it's crazy, you can't work more than 12 hours. But back then we wanted
it doesn't seem like work.
No, we wanted to. We wanted to be there.
We want to get it right. Yeah.
We wanted to ensure that, you know, he had everything. He had all the ammo, you know, to shoot, you know, and we wanted to do everything for him. All of us, whether it was
that's
slow,
what Anurag,
Vasan,
that's what Anurag inspires in people.
Yeah.
I've learned from him. And he inspires that people want to give their everything to him.
Yeah, and we did. We were always there.
Papa बुलाते हैं बहुत लोग तो उसको.
हाँ?
In Versova they call him Papa only.
Really?
You don't call your own father Papa, but I've met people say Papa. मैंने कौन है तेरा Papa भाई? How can Anurag Kashyap be your Papa? No. I mean, he has a cult following, right? He has the thing going.
He has a following.
Yeah, he's like a भगवान की तरह मतलब बहुत. I mean, he's been like a mentor to a lot of indies in that sense.
No, a lot of big filmmakers now, like a lot of people who are doing a lot of work. Neeraj Gewan, Vasan Bala, Shlok Sharma, me, Vicky Kaushal, Vikram Motwani. But Vikram Motwani, they had a different relationship. I think they were working together.
Right.
Not.
That was more like an equal relationship.
Yeah.
In a sense.
He wasn't
I
don't think he was an assistant.
Right.
I don't think so. Lots of us, I mean, Karuna Dutt or whether it is.
Fair enough. I mean, what Anurag became, say, a decade later, is what Ram Gopal Verma was in the late 90s. Would you agree, Hansal?
Ram Gopal Verma will never happen again. You know, Anurag will also tell you that. Because I came in at the time when
Yes,
Ram Gopal
because
Verma,
right at the time, yes.
It was that time. It was he empowered us like no one else did. Without actually...
He was doing his own thing, but by
not
inspiring.
patronizing. He would not give you, you know, you would gather around him, but he would be that irreverence and the audacity, sheer audacity with which he did his work, and the sheer originality of how he saw stories. He was original. He was an absolute original. You know, he would watch lots of films, but you wouldn't see that in his.
Right.
He would just
unless he talks about it himself.
Yeah, unless he talks about it, it's so, and he's not afraid. Like that fearlessness, that sheer fearlessness in the 90s. It was a very difficult time. It was a time when financiers made films, not studios. There were no studios. So Bharat Bhai Shah made Satya.
Right. Right. True that. Yeah.
You know, Jammu Sugandh made Rangeela.
Yeah. And company.
And Dord.
Yeah. But I get your point.
Yeah.
The larger point is this.
The larger point was that, and then with like Bharat Bhai Shah was the big daddy.
Yeah.
And you make a film with Manoj Bajpayee, with a star from South, J.D. Chakrabarti. The only star was Urmila Matondkar. And you have all these new writers, Anurag Kashyap, Saurabh Shukla. Saurabh is also acting in the film in a major role.
Vishal's music.
Vishal had broken out with Matches.
Right.
So Vishal became like, one of this, Vishal was hot at that time. Chappa Chappa Charkha Chale and Choda Yam Wo Galiya was like a rage at that point in time. But with that, for Ramu to just say...
Do you think Satya was a turning point in that sense, Hansal?
Yeah, totally.
And I'm asking you this question particularly because you knew these guys.
Satya was also Manish Malhotra.
Only Urmila.
Rangila was Manish Malhotra.
No,
even Satya.
Satya, he may have done what costume.
Urmila sarees.
But still.
Yeah, I think Manoj got his own clothes. He picked it up from the store.
Everyone else picked up their own clothes. So Satya, I used to visit the sets of Satya. I was doing Jayate at that time. So it was happening almost parallelly. So Jayate began and then Satya began. So Anurag introduced me to RGV. I had seen Dod at that time. And actually I loved Dod. I enjoyed Dod. I thought it was like the maddest film I had seen.
Right.
Yeah. And Anurag went and told Ramu that Hansal, it didn't work for Hansal. I just, why do you tell him that?
Yes.
So Ramu, yeah, isn't okay. Then he showed me rough edits of Satya, and there was a young editor there, Apurva Asrani.
Who worked with you?
You worked with me so many years.
Yeah.
So Apu was in the edit room. He showed me, Apu showed me some scenes over there. And I saw those scenes and I said, wow, this is like, it's almost, you felt at that time, he was editing at Rakesh Roshan's studio, Videocraft.
Okay.
It was called. So Filmcraft.
In Andheri.
Filmcraft and video. It was in Santa Cruz actually.
Okay.
That was Rakesh Roshan's editing studio, video editing.
Okay, that he used to give out.
He used to give out.
Okay.
So Ramu used to work from there. So I went there to meet him. Anurag took me to meet him. And Ramu showed us scenes from the film. Very open, not afraid to show his work. It's in rough cut stage. And I felt you felt there, the energy, there's something, there's change. And Manoj, I saw Manoj was our friend. We'd been friends for so many years. And to see him there, that kind of energy, that mad energy, that, very virile thing. And of course, we never knew how
it will be received commercially.
What would happen to this film. Nobody was expecting what eventually happened. But it was, you felt that there was change around the corner. Yeah, the parallel cinema movement had, sort of faded out. Like Govindji was making films.
Right.
Shyam Babu was making films. The same people were making films. And this new Maverick was
all of who were your friends. Even before Satya, right? All these guys.
And the big Maverick.
Yeah.
Matches was one game changer because the music was fresh. They cast newcomers. Tabu was earlier in Vijay Path and those films. Bol Baby Bol.
Yeah.
So she was cast in that kind of a part, and with Chandrachur saying, "You're Jimmy Shergill" in that film, And I used to visit the sets of Matches. You felt like these very heady times from '95 until 2000.
Right.
Very heady times because new people came in, new talent. We had Chandrachur Singh, Arshad Varsi.
Yeah.
Then later Manoj Bajpayee. There were new stars on the horizon. Parallelly, there was Mukul Dev, Samrat Mukherjee. They were signing films like left, right, and center.
Those mainstream films.
Mukul Dev was like the hottest star around. He was signing all the big films.
Interesting.
And Shah Rukh Khan, of course,
Rahul Roy.
was becoming the big star. No, Rahul Roy was earlier. Ashiki.
What was that film of him where he becomes a lion or tiger?
Junoon.
Yeah, that was a Mahesh Bhatt production.
Yeah, I remember that movie very clearly.
That was
quite wacky though.
That was in the early 90s, no?
Yeah.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank Shekhar.
When you made Dil Pe Mat Yaar, that was in a sense an extension of that same movement, right? Like in a sense, because those are the kind of people you're working with. That was the kind of subject it was. It was about migrant life, about the outsiders to a city. It had a quirky feel to it. It wasn't your mainstream, but it wasn't your art house either. Would you agree?
It was. See, the initial script that we wrote, Saurabh it was an idea that
Saurabh Shukla, who also wrote Satya.
Satya.
Yeah.
So Saurabh was acting with me when Kaun was being made. He was acting in a show, in a thing called Rishte, which was made for Z,
Right.
a series.
Right.
So it was a show. It was a story called Hai Mote. It's about a fat man's love story.
Okay.
Yeah. So much before Bala and all these things happened. It's about a man who can't tell a woman because he's worried about his size. We were shooting that, and Saurabh was a bit restless. So he was upset about something going on in his professional life. So I sat with him. I said, "Ki Saurabh, ek story hai, main sunata hu tere ko." So it was just a random story about. I had read something seen something in the news. A couple was making out and they had kept a video camera on. And piche there was a big blast, a shootout that happened on the opposite side, and they captured it. So that footage was sold to BBC for an amount.
Interesting. Right.
So I said, yeah, this is like, it's a story, it's a business idea. So what if somebody who shoots marriages like me, it was a almost biographical character.
Right.
Somebody who shoots marriages like me sees a contract killing. He has a friend who's the contract killer, and he says, I'll shoot it and sell it to the news. So that was the idea that I posed. I said, what if a videographer does this? So Saurabh said, marriage, shadi wala main banunga. To main likhunga. I said, done. It started that way. Then I went to Manoj. Saurabh wrote something. We went to Manoj. Manoj said, done. Satya had not happened. And we had written one draft. Manoj ko,
So Manoj would say yes anyway, right? Because Satya
no,
has
well,
not
he said
happened.
yes. He said yes. He said
but
yes
it's not like,
anyway.
yeah,
And
giving
then
him a lead.
And then Satya happened. Then Satya happened. Manoj just completely exploded
Yeah.
on the scene. He was being signed by everyone. So I had to re-narrate Dil Pe Mat Le Yaar to him. And he said कि you need to upgrade the film थोड़ा सा.
scale बढ़ाओ.
थोड़ा scale बढ़ाओ, commercial करो. So then Tabu came in. So I was in touch with Tabu for something else. And I requested her to do the film. So then Tabu came into the film. So Manoj Bajpayee, Tabu, and we had to add songs. So Vishal, so there were no songs in the original script. And the final film had
But now that you're scaling it up, you need songs as well.
we had 6 songs.
Mm.
So
Full soundtrack.
Full soundtrack. Udit Narayan, Abhijit. So it became, while the film was.
It became a mainstream from an indie.
Yeah, and I somehow feel that that it had that indie spirit undercurrent, and every time the song would come, it would sort of, you would jump out of that.
Correct.
And that for me destroyed the film.
Right.
In a way, that you were not seeing a film. A lot of people. I mean, the woman I'm married to right now, actually fell in love with me much before she met me, because she watched Dil Pe Mat Le Yaar in San Francisco. When she met me, she told
Dil pe lag gaya.
it was it was like a fan moment, and I said, do you really remember that film? Because that film's failure broke me.
I think it's his best film.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
It broke me, but that film really broke me. I mean, financially.
Because of the finances?
Finances, we put in our own money. We put in our own money, and what happens is when an actor achieves this heady highs of stardom, and that suddenly just comes nose diving. Because you are doing something that you had not actually. So all his films with Ramu were doing well.
Correct.
Everything outside, there was a commercial.
It's like a Prabhas effect, na? Matlab, Bahubali did well. Doesn't mean anything that Prabhas is in is going to do equally well in that sense.
We were also young. Everybody wanted to be Shah Rukh Khan that time. Everybody wanted to do that big commercial blockbuster, because none of those films paid your bills. So everybody wanted money out of those films. Manoj also went through his process. The process. We were all in our early 30s at that time. So I think he just we put in our own money, and by the time the film came out, things had gone downhill, and we lost some money on the film, and all that just bogged me down. The reviews weren't good, so neither was the film.
Yeah, one of the two has to work, right?
Yeah,
either critically acclaimed or commercial blockbuster.
दोनों नहीं हुए.
Right.
Nobody got the film. Nobody got the film.
And there was another issue also, that happened with the film.
That happened later. Then the whole attacking me over a dialogue in the film. It happened 5 weeks later, when the film was almost out of the theatres. Sort of attacked me for a dialogue, and it was a major thing, like Danda village where I grew up. That was my Janmabhoomi. I was called there, and they painted my face black.
Smeared
Me in black, and I had to touch a lady's feet for insulting their sentiments. This is way back in 2000. So that sort of scarred me in a big way. You know, that I had to do that. And there was a riot almost. There were thousands of people who had gathered there and they were shouting slogans.
Outside your house?
Outside Danda village. They came to my office first in trucks. They arrived in trucks. They beat me up in my office. They vandalized the office and said कि कल आओ नहीं तो we will burn Kishore Kadam's house. Kishore Kadam is an actor who used to live in Danda then. He was in Fandry, very lovely actor.
Yeah.
So they said we'll burn Kishore's house. I said Kishore का घर क्यों जलाओगे? बोला नहीं तुम आओ इधर माफी मांगो. Because the cops had told me don't go. So we tried all night to contact people कि भाई क्या करें. I told the cops, I said, listen, if Kishore का घर जल गया ना, वो बेचारा मतलब it's a small house there. He's afraid. He called me at night saying यार लोग इधर बाहर बैठ के दारू पी रहे हैं, and you know, they put bonfires outside the house just to threaten me. So I mean that was heartbreaking. You know, I had to literally fall on people's feet and all. That found itself in Shahid. That moment when Shahid is smeared.
Right.
It's on the poster of Shahid. So that moment was very, so you know, film that is talking about voyeurism. Suddenly, you know, people observing something happening. I became the observed.
Right.
I became like this spectacle.
Do you have a picture from that? I mean, of course, it's not something to...
No, it wasn't. I ran away. I mean, so there were people from that party only who contacted me later and said कि सलाह देता हूँ. The other politicians started calling me saying कि, you know, don't worry, we are supporting you. And I was
Yeah, you're stuck, yeah.
No, I'm reeling from the failure of the film. With financial loss, इसमें ये कहाँ? So one guy said कि एक सलाह देता हूँ, 1 month, just go away. So I went away. I went to Pune and stayed with a friend. And I came back after 15 days. You know, sort of just completely went under the radar. And I feel that time I should have raised my voice more. I was like, and that, you know, that very suffocated voice was the voice that made those indifferent films for that many years.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like I said this, I'm not going to try and make these kind of films anymore. Until Shahid happened.
So basically you decided at that point to make films that do not really, like, one, ruffle feathers. Second, it's just seen as a film. हाँ. Point one मत बताओ, दुनिया को ज्ञान वन मत पीटो, बस एक कोई film बना दो, just looks like a film. Is that what happened to you?
So I made a film called Chal.
Chal you made, yes.
So Chal was an interesting film because it was very stylish. It was, you know, ahead of its times in terms of the way it was shot, way it was executed. And I had this thought, which I always have, you know, which I've carried forward. I wanted to make a good actor a star. So it had KK Menon playing an action hero. So I had this thing that, you know, what if we make our own Hong Kong style action movies? A John Woo style action movie. KK is like our Chavyun Fat. And Prashant Narayanan, both phenomenal actors.
Right.
And thoda stylized kar do. So it was a very stylish film. Again, it didn't work.
You know, I get a sense from, you know, from there onwards, the films that you did, including Woodstock Villa, for that matter, even the short film that you did.
Have you seen Ye Kya Ho Raha Hai?
I have, maybe I have. Actually, I've seen everything around that time.
You had also, it was a film to be torn apart. Everybody tore it apart. The reviews were one more hilarious than the other. It was a comedy. It was the beginning of the sex comedies. And so style, masti, all that happened after Ye Kya Ho Raha Hai. Had 8 people, 8 new kids, and all of them, you know, teenagers trying to find sex. It was American Pie kind of film.
Right.
It was like trashed so badly, and that's when I said कि आप भूल जाओ यार, if they trash your good work, your bad work, and your worst work, it's all equalized. सभी बुरा है. तो boss survived then. तो survival के लिए खेला.
And that's when you joined Sanjay Gupta. You.
That was much later.
Okay.
I made 3 films before that, which never released.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a film called Raghu.
Okay.
There's a film called Raak. And there was a film called Anjan.
All 3.
All 3 never got released.
So are these films still somewhere? I mean,
somewhere, yeah.
They're somewhere.
They exist somewhere. I don't know where. Raak was incomplete.
Okay.
It was not complete, but the producer put it together and said the film is complete. But it's not. I have not heard of anyone connected to the film. I don't know where the negatives are.
That's crazy.
Even Raghu, the negatives, I don't know where they are. Because Ad Labs shut down. I don't know who was contacted with the negatives. Anjan, yes, the negatives are with the producer, and it's an interesting film in its own way. It was intended to be a very, very B-grade sex film. That was the phase when,
Correct.
Havas and all these films had really broken. So I was asked to make one of those. And I tried to do something artistic with it. It was a sex film, but I made it into slightly more artistic, slightly edgy, very handheld with a film camera. And it was an interesting film, but it again never saw light of day. So then Woodstock Villa happened. And Sanjay saved my life in a way. He gave me a job, gave me a steady income, and I could sort of breathe. Otherwise, I had reached a point where I could not survive. Like I tried to do an Ekta Kapoor show, K Street, Pali Hill. I directed, it was a daily soap. So I went in to direct that. I was sacked in 15 days. They said, I was told, like Ekta told me, sir, it's too much like a film. It's not a daily soap.
Which you can do now. I mean, now the shows are
Which is what
happening now.
which happened. I'm talking of 2005.
Right.
So I was sacked very politely, unlike what people have heard that I was thrown out. No. Very politely she called me, said, it's too much like a film. This is not, our shows don't work because of this. We have a format, you have to follow that, and I don't want you to do it. So please leave. So then I did a show called Family Business, which came on Star One. It was a gangster drama. Dara Singh playing Don Corleone. Punjabi Don Corleone. But that sort of changed my life. I mean, the man who played Sonny Corleone, his daughter is now my wife.
Oh, wow.
Yusuf Hussain.
Right.
he was there in the show. I met her because of him.
कुछ ना कुछ तो होता ही रहता है. I mean everything in that sense leads to something
the friends I made in Ye Kya Ho Raha Hai, they're still my friends. Amir has worked with Jay now in Lootere. Amir Ali.
Right.
So he made his debut in Ye Kya Ho Raha Hai, and he's seen Jay in red chaddis in the house. And
So there is a point in your life in Bombay that you actually quit the city because you can't live here anymore, and you just decide to move. Which year is that, Hansal? This is after
2008.
2008, after everything that you worked on before.
Woodstock
before it's
Villa
been a
released on the
fiasco.
31st of May 2008. 30th we had a premiere for the film. And I was staying in Mada. By then I had already started the move. So I was living in Mada in a small apartment over Lakshmi General Stores. I can't forget that. And we were living there, and I went for the premiere. And the premiere had, you name it, it was Sikandar's
debut film.
So it had Yash.
Anupam Kher's son's debut film. Yeah.
So it was Yash
Kiran,
ji, Yash ji, the Bachchan family, everybody. I mean, you name it, they were all
The whole
there.
industry was watching
The whole
this.
industry had come to watch it.
And you're the director.
And I'm there, and people actually came out and told me कि यार ये अच्छी film है, बढ़िया है, बहुत अच्छा किया है. And I realized कि I'm living a lie. And literally that night we packed our bags. And I told my wife that tomorrow I have some work to do, because I was also working for Sanjay. So we had just set up a film called Acid Factory, which Supan was directing.
Yeah.
So I had set that up so I had to get the finances.
When you say these names, Nan, because I write movie reviews also for a living, I keep thinking of the headlines. So I remember Acid Factory writing a review said Flaccid Factory.
So I had to get the money for Acid Factory to Sanjay. So luckily that day, we had a party at night. Afternoon we met with the studio. He got a check for Acid Factory. So I said, my work was done. So Sanjay said, what is the plan today? I said, plan is I'm going to Lonavala, and I don't know after that. And that was it. I left.
You left the city, you left films.
Everything.
With no plans ahead.
I did not leave films. I just went away. I said, dekhenge. Right now I just need to free my mind, and I need to see what I actually can do. And there was the road, actually the doors had shut, and nothing. I mean, Gangs of Wasseypur was my daughter Rihanna, the youngest, was born. It was 2 days after she was born when Zishan came to me with Gangs of Wasseypur, a year later, and it didn't happen. But a year later, Shahid Azmi was killed. And I said, okay, this is the film that I want to make. And we started writing it, not knowing what was going to happen. But that changed my life. That
gave you a voice, Hansal. Would that be correct to say? Like now you were trying to say something rather than just make a film?
It made me free. It freed me from all the barriers that I had created, self-created barriers. Now you make films like a zombie, thinking कि ये I'll make जो चलता है, जो लोगों को चाहिए, I'll make that.
I'll make it look good though.
I'll make it look good. I'll make it well. I'll use my craft to do what people want. I'll supply the market with films.
Correct.
So I did that. Now I said, even if that has not worked, then obviously I have to do something else. So luckily at that time, this whole passion for cinema and all that had happened.
The blog
had happened.
Yeah.
And in that we
PFC,
discovered digital film. We started talking about digital filmmaking and all. And I realized that if I had to
I remember you were blogging quite regularly on that site, right? And this is when you were in your village near Lonavala.
Yeah.
That's where you were sitting and writing from.
Writing from.
So you were clearly still very much cued into movies, and that was still, that remained what it was.
And I was also, I started venting out there. I started writing about my process and all that. That's where I realized that there's a lot to say, there's a lot to do, and I realized the film doesn't need. And then Anurag, see, Khosla Ka Ghosla, Devdi, Gulal, all these films, came back to back. Khosla Ka Ghosla, Oi Lucky Lucky Oi, Amir,
right,
Rajkumar Gupta.
Yeah.
So those films came, back to back, and they sort of, you felt that yes, you can do something. You can make films without having to go crazy.
Like the medium budget entertainer.
The medium budget engaging film,
yeah,
that you can make films that that are made in a budget that can be recovered.
Right.
And ultimately that's what matters.
Right.
And I've just done that. I've made films like, budgets that don't fail. Budgets fail, films don't.
Right.
So Shahid was made at, the first cost of production was 35 lakhs. Then we paid people, it cost around 70 odd lakhs when we paid people. So that it was no brainer, what do you need to recover? Shot with a Canon 5D, with a DSLR camera.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank Shekhar.
So in that sense, Shahid is your turning point, right? But I think the bigger turning point, Hansal, and one of the reasons why we're also meeting here for this long conversation is actually Scam. Because you have a whole new medium to play with. Unlike in the Ekta Kapoor phase, you can make a show or a series that looks like a film.
But funnily, Ekta Kapoor has to be credited for my entry into the long form.
Okay.
Like I was a showrunner on a show called Boss, Dead or Alive.
Okay.
For when she had started Alt Balaji.
And that was a prestige show.
That was the prestige show. It had Rajkumar.
Yeah.
So Rajkumar, me, Pulkit.
It was a lovely series, by the way.
Exactly.
Very underrated.
Very
I guess because of the platform
it was engaging.
It was very engaging, absolutely.
And it had music by Q.
The filmmaker Q.
Filmmaker Q, he did the music. So Q gave these, Bengali rap. He rapped in the film. It was all Subhash rap. It made the film it made the show very cool. So we had music by him. It was a very, it was quite cutting edge at that time.
Yes.
And it did well. It was appreciated. That sort of gave me, I had made Simran around that time. Simran had released. Again, I had gone into a low.
You keep going to low, na? मतलब थोड़ा सा कुछ अच्छा होता है, पटांग you go.
चाहिए.
You need that. Yeah.
You always need that,
Put your head, to have your head on your shoulders.
Yeah, to have your head on your shoulders. Like, just last year, your headline read, Abdul. So, wake up call. मैं headline बोलता नहीं हूँ.
Abdul. Nice.
That's what we do.
So I
like you need viewers, we need readers too. So we do things to make it entertaining. Really, no offense meant ever. Nothing personal. But so that was the beginning. Bose was the beginning in the
long
sense
form.
of long form, which is really something you've cracked, huh, Hansal? The reason I mentioned Scam, and of course I'd like to mention Scoop, is because this podcast is called the Bombay Film Story, and there aren't two more iconic stories that have come from Bombay in that sense. I was going to say Hansal, but I mean Harshad Mehta and the entire 1990s, early 90s, that what happened with this big B of BSc. And then of course, because this is a midday podcast, there is J Day. And it is a story of the correspondent at the crime editor at. How did these two series happen to you?
scam happened to me just after Simran, 2017, when Applause had just started. So Sameer called me and he gave me this book, which I had read. I had tried to pitch it as a film many years
You
back.
read this book because it's an old book. It's a 1992 book by Sucheta Dalal
In
and
2005,
is it
when I read it.
Okay,
I
right.
read it in 2005.
Right.
So I tried to pitch it as a film, you know, Hansal Mehta film, you know, a Wall Street kind of film. I tried to pitch that. You know, Oliver Stone is my all-time. He's always
we share something in common.
Yes,
Hansal.
he has inspired me.
Right.
Always. You know, I go back to his films when I feel low. You know,
Which one do you go back to?
well, different films at different times,
Right.
but you know, JFK.
Yeah.
I always go back to JFK and Nixon. Very underrated
Yeah.
biography.
Yeah.
You know, so that sometimes any given Sunday, I find that quite. Then Born on the 4th of July.
4th of July.
It's such powerful work.
Natural born killers, everything.
Yeah.
I wanted to that Oliver Stonian
So when you read that book, I'm presuming you imagine it as a film.
initially as a film, but
Yeah.
as a film it was very dense and nobody wanted to make it. Sameer gave the book to me and he's
It's okay, I've read this.
no, he gave
Yeah.
me 3-4 other. He says we
To
have
pick
all
from.
this. I can pick. I said no, I don't want to even hear that. This is it. But it was a journey. I mean, we wrote for nearly 2.5 years, and that journey taught me this: writing is the key. You write, you rewrite, and then cast correctly. And luckily, I mean, I had a partner like Sameer who just let me do that. I mean, if he had pressured me,
Right.
I was going down. I had begun to go downhill again. So at that time, if Sameer had said, take a star, I would have done it with a star. But I went with Pratik's, not even an audition, I had not even seen his audition. I had taken Pratik's face. I took it to the office, showed it to him. I said, yeah, this is the guy. Sameer said, yeah, very good. And that was it. I called Pratik was signed.
Amazing.
Before the script was actually written, we signed him in 2018. We started shooting in 2019. September 2019, 29th September 2019 is when we started shooting. And yeah, the rest is history. I mean, it's just we persevered. It was a show, we persevered. We knew while we were making it that there's something here. It was not very expensive. It was a cheaply made show. But there was something going on that we felt some magic was happening. And that sort of enabled Scoop. Scoop was a difficult story.
Yes.
You know, those stories are not told.
Right.
And to tell J-Day's story from the eyes of the person who was accused of his murder. You know, you sort of change the lens.
Right.
You shift the gaze. That was the bigger challenge, you know, to see it from the eyes of the newsroom. You know, you don't see encounters. You know, you've seen gangster films.
Right.
You've seen cop
Right.
stories.
Right.
But you've seen the cops and the gangsters from the newsroom. It's all happening from a passive place. You're talking about them.
Right.
You're writing about them. You're not. So it's a challenge to make that into a drama.
True.
You know,
And again, you had something to say. There was a
Yeah.
point you wanted to make about mainstream news media.
And
that
how,
you could,
how journalists are also threatened for wanting to tell the truth. You know, they feel that sense of threat.
yeah, it's a
And
tough job.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
So that, you know, constantly being under threat for telling the truth, you know, so that battle between truth and, you know, having to put out an edition every day.
Yeah.
That battle, I think that moral, ethical and business battle that they fight on a daily basis. I think Scoop was a celebration of that.
It was. Of course, you took the pants off Bombay police. Yeah. But they never like sort of hit back at you.
I think
because you're making a point which is, you know, almost indicting them in that particular case.
Not really. I think we were respectful. You know, we also respected the pressures that they could have been under. So everybody in
Right.
our world,
You're being empathetic to each
everybody is
side.
under pressure.
Right.
Everybody feels a sense of you're burdened by the needle of suspicion. You know, you're always, everybody is a suspect, and you're burdened because of the pressure that the stakes are always high.
You know, I've had this long conversation with Hansal, and you've known him for all these years. Of course, you didn't get enough chance to speak because it's called the Bombay Film Story. He's lived way longer in Bombay.
He's
and
more
done-
Bombay than I am. I'm Mumbai.
You're Mumbai, yes, of course. And you're also less films compared to his long story. But you know, of all the things that you've known about him, in terms of a Bombay film story, is there one that you find particularly interesting because he hasn't told us, or I haven't asked him, or something that's inspired you or needn't inspire you? It's just a great story that you know about him, that you maybe somebody else has told you, or maybe something you've experienced yourself. You want to think about this?
That's a dense question.
It is a dense question. But I mean, it's a story and an anecdote, not necessarily a story, is a proper kahani.
I felt like the one thing that reflects a lot in his work is, constantly feeling like an outsider. Which is why his films have also had these migrant stories. They've always been stories of the underdog. Because I somewhere feel he's also channelizing his own struggles into those characters, and because he relates with them and their struggle. And I feel like there's something that hits him over there. And he also when those characters face certain hurdles and they go down, they go through a bad time, but then they still constantly keep going at it, and then eventually come out, they conquer. I think that's why
that's reflective of his life.
It is. I feel, and that's I think unknowingly he chooses these stories. I don't think he knows it, but they kind of have that pattern.
But his Bombay story has just begun.
His Bombay story. Do you have a particular favorite Bombay story of his in terms of his time in films or his time in Bombay? Something that you really cherish as an anecdote.
Now his Bombay story is right now. He's my restaurant advisor.
Okay.
You call him, Jay, I have to take somebody out for dinner. Where to go? Because I've become a homebody. I eat at home. I cook at home. So Jay knows.
What are the places that you recommend, Jay?
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh man, see again.
Yeah,
These are very favorites. Honestly, I've become more of a sandwich guy of late.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying
like the Road Ka Bombay sandwich, yeah, one of the fancy
Road Ka Bombay sandwich, though, of course,
but
like really good sandwiches.
No, these are all very
good
sandwiches.
Organic
with
avocado.
I don't like organic and all that.
He's my hipster son, by the way. And he's like my father's son. My father was a very cool guy. Always, very conscious about the way he dressed, the way he looked. And Jay has taken like completely to him. I have to struggle sometimes to look presentable.
Yeah, but did you have that phase too at some point in your life when you're his age? Were you like the cool dude?
I had a kid peeing on me every 2 years. I had a kid peeing on me.
Now you're telling him, "Ji le apni zindagi." Meri zindagi ji le. But I have to say on that note, when we're just about to wrap this episode, one place that I thought that you brought a lot of yourself into a film was actually that short film you made in
Modern Love.
In Modern Love, purely because I think there are two passions that you have outside of films. One is music, because you've actually trained in music.
Too much.
Homework karke aaye, sir. And the second is, of course, because you are obviously into cooking, because you are responsible for India's biggest and certainly the first cookery or a chef show, whatever they're called. So you had Chef Ranveer Brar, you had Talat Aziz,
acting in it,
acting in it, both in it. Tell me quickly about, because this is what always happens to people once somebody knows that you've ever been a singer. I am going to make that person sing. You need to sing. You can obviously completely hum, but because you trained under, the great
Ustad Ghulam Mustafa Khan Sahab.
Yes, and you were with him for 3-4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
So I left because I was struggling with tal, with rhythm. It was a struggle. And I realized that there was some disorder, that I just could not get the rhythm. So, as I would count tempo, I would stop singing. So it was like a major struggle. I would do riyaz, and then I realized that I'm struggling. So, Disciple, Chaitanya Taman's film resonated a lot with me. It was my story of somebody who's struggling. You have all these...
But not giving up, but there is only that far you can go.
So films became that. So I've had music which has always been good. It's not been celebrated or not done as well, but you had a Muskurane Ki Wajah in City Lights.
Yes.
But you had a Sone Do, based on Rag Puriya Dhanashri in the same film. Great song. Similarly, Bai was that. I had 4 songs in a short film. I had Ali Seth's Chandni Raat. And Ali was kind enough to just give me the song. He gifted me the song. Blockbuster, beautiful song. Chandni Raat, there was a Thumri in Rag Khamaj. There was a song by Sonu Nigam. So, there were 4 songs in a short film. So I got to do all that and make a love story. Nobody lets me make a love story. So I have to slip in a love story in whatever stories I tell. So whether it's Shahid, I have to add a love story. I have to keep inserting a love story to tell people कि यार
दे दो मुझे
हाँ मैं कर सकता हूँ.
रोमांस
I can do. तो वो है कि romance. Bombay, I think since it's a Bombay story, what it has given me most is it's kept me an eternal romantic. There's no other way you can survive on these streets, the state that they are in. Unless you are a romantic, you cannot survive here.
Hansal Mehta, Jay Mehta, thank you very much for being on the Bombay Film Story.
Thank you.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.